tight. This ain't no ordinary loot. UFC's the battleground where warriors collide. DieHard MMA podcast, we won't hide. Clint's going deep, analyze each brawl from the underdogs to the champions standing tall. Let the fury, let your instincts rise. Feel the adrenaline rush, it's time to defy. DieHard MMA, we're here for the thrill. Get ready for the madness. Let's make that bankroll spill.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Undefeated post-weigh-in show. I'm your host, your boy as always, Clint, here on the camera. We are back. I ate my Chipotle burrito. I am full. I am stuffed. I've got all the nutrients I could ever ask for, and we are going to talk about UFC 302. And the screen is pissing me off because I can't full screen it again. Why do they always mess with my settings? Hope everyone is having one hell of a weekend. Oh my goodness, I am ready to go. I am so amped up. I looked at this fight card when it first happened and I was like, and then I dug into it and I love this card from a betting perspective. Like, there's so much more to it than I initially thought at first glance. So I'm probably going to have more action than I should on this card. As always, I hope you are doing well. Don't forget to practice proper bankroll management, but let's go ahead and get into this card. If it's your first time on this show, we take Monday's breakdown, all the information we know, we take all the conversations we've had with all of our sports betting homies, we watch the fighters on the scale, we watch them face off, and then we use all of that, put it all into one giant pile, and we try to pull out that stinky sock from the pile that we need to put on our left foot. And that's the bet we make tomorrow for Saturday. And usually that's a winner. And that's why this show is undefeated. Do me a favor and hit the like button here for me. All right. So, full disclosure, I told everybody at the Sharp Action Report just a couple of minutes ago that I just got off the bus, literally just pulled into my house here from a week-long California vacation, and I scarfed a Chipotle burrito down, only got half of it for the Sharp Action Report. Thankfully, I was able to finish the rest of it here before this one, so at least I'm not starving going into this show. But I didn't get to watch the weigh-ins as normal today because I was actually driving. So just so you guys are fully aware, I usually have more information. I like to watch them do the actual weigh-ins, and then I watch the ceremonial weigh-ins so we can kind of see the difference between them. I had to fly through the regular weigh-ins. I just kind of got a glance, like a little peek at them. So I'm not going to be quite as on point this week about those as I normally would be, but I did watch the ceremonials, and of course we have the analysis, so don't worry, we will get to all the good stuff as much as we can. First fight of the night, Mitch Reposo takes on Andre Lima, our one weight miss on this card, our one person who wasn't professional enough to get the damn thing done. Andre Lima, he blows it by 4 pounds, and this is one of those ones, guys, where we're breaking out the tinfoil cap early on this one. I don't understand, because he didn't look stressed. He didn't look strained. He definitely gave me the vibe of a guy who might be shooting an angle here. He definitely gave me the vibe of a guy who didn't kill himself to try to make that weight. He looked okay. Now, maybe the doctors stopped him. Maybe the doctors came in and were like, you're not fit. You can't cut that extra little bit. Your body's not reacting well to it. That could happen. That always happens. The doctors are meant to save people. It's about fighter safety, etc. So definitely don't want to say that that's necessarily the case, but sometimes we've been seeing that lately where people will come in and they'll be like, you know what, I'll take the extra pound or two. And if I'm going to miss anyway, I might as well miss by a lot. You know what I mean? Now, Mitch Reposo and his camp, they're annoyed, but they're way too ready for this opportunity. Mitch has been trying to get to the UFC. He's been grinding his ass off on the regional scene, did Dana White's Contender Series, did the Ultimate Fighter. Like, they've had this kid circled for a long time, and he took the chance to get to the big show. They're not turning this down. Even this guy coming in missing weight, there's no way Mitch was ever going to be like, you know what? Nah, no, thank you. I'm not going to take that one. No, he's in kind of a lose-lose situation with that, right? Because if he is filling in on short notice, technically not on the UFC roster, giving up that Contender Series opportunity that he had booked down the line to make this debut and just get straight into the big show without having to earn it on the Contender Series again, if you turn it down now at the 10th, at the 9th hour, Dana ain't gonna like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that they bring him back. He had to take it. He absolutely had to take it. So at least he's gonna get a cut. I think they did 30%. Mitch is a little small, guys. I like Mitch. I like his overall game. I like his wrestling. I like his boxing. He's fast. 125 is a good spot for him, but he is still small. He's still undersized. And that was something that we saw at these face-offs. Andre Lima was the much bigger of the two fighters, and especially with those extra couple of pounds, like, he's gonna be larger once they get in there in the cage on Saturday. I talked on Monday. I don't trust Lima's gas tank. I was really weirded out by the whole biting situation because it looked like his opponent in that fight was really starting to take it over. Now, I guess there was some talk about the fact that he was just like not there mentally, like he was so concussed or something like that. That's what he went into like rabid dog mode, and that's why he bit him that night. I'm not sure I buy that shit, I'll be honest with you, but I mean, maybe, I guess so. He had been body locking the guy for like 3 straight minutes at that point, so I'm not sure how hurt he really was after watching the tape. I don't know. That one just seems weird. The whole situation's weird. Even if you're Rock, you shouldn't be biting people. Stop it. So this fight is tough for me. Andre Lima, I think, deserving favorite. Obviously, he's got the height advantage. He's got the size advantage. He's got a nice, shiny record. However, I do think we're getting to the point where this is a little bit wide. I think this is a dog or pass spot, and I am tempted to fire just like a small shot here on Mitch Reposo, because I do think that if I'm correct about Leva having these gas tank struggles, what if his body did shut down? What if he did have a bad weight cut? What if he didn't take this camp super seriously? Or maybe he had a personal issue that he wasn't able to get the cardio in like he normally does. We could see that be a real issue in this fight. And we could absolutely see somebody like Mitch Reposo take over the deeper this fighter goes, because he's going to be a little Energizer bunny. It's not like Mitch Reposo has really ever had a gas problem. The short notice worries me. You want your guy to be on a full camp, especially if you're banking on cardio. But Mitch has been doing a lot when it comes to his regional scene fights. He's getting late finishes. Like in his last fight, he knocked the dude out in round 4. So like, he's going deep in his fights. I think he can go a full 15 minutes. It's going to be that first round with Lima that's really going to be the problem, because he's going to have to overcome that size discrepancy. He's going to have to wear this guy out and slow him down, and then do enough in the second and third rounds to take over or finish the guy, which I'm not entirely certain is necessarily possible. So another one where like, it's not a huge value. I kind of feel like Lima should be like minus 185, not minus 285. You know what I mean? Like that kind of ballpark. So I'm going to pick Lima. I'm going to pick Lima to win the fight. I will be watching this one very closely from a live betting perspective to see if I want to jump in on Mitch, and maybe I find my way to like a little flyer on Mitch pre-flop. We'll see what we end up doing. What's up, everybody? I see y'all in the chat. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate you guys. Second fight up, Aileen Perez taking on Jocelyn Edwards. We've got Jocelyn Edwards coming in at 136, Aileen Perez 135. Edwards did need the box of shame today, which, if you guys have been around for more than just a couple of months, Jocelyn Edwards has been struggling at 135. It's weird because she's got this like tall, long, lanky build. She's not the most muscly fighter in the world, and she's really had a hard time making weight. So I was a bit worried about this one, but she used the box of shame. She made weight. She did not look happy on the scales today. This was a tough cut for her, but boy, does she have abs. She looks like she's in incredible shape coming into this fight here. for this one. Aileen Perez, though, no issues. She's thick as ever. This is a lower body type of girl, right? She's very muscly, but she's short, she's squat, she's a little tanky, she's smiling, she's twerking. She's good to go. No issues for her weight cutting or anything like that. But you know what I forgot about, guys? When I did this breakdown on Monday, I completely spaced the bad blood situation going into this fight. Shout out to Narco and Tim that do the Lambo Plays podcast. I totally forgot that there was like a backstage altercation between these two in their last fight. This fight has been building for a long time, where I guess like Perez's boyfriend assaulted Jocelyn Edwards essentially after a fight, and they got into it. So there's some, it's not like high stakes for the division, but it's like high stakes on a personal level coming into this one. And I'll be honest with you guys, the battle of the mental, I feel like that goes to Jocelyn Edwards here in this spot, because she was dialed the fuck in. I mean, she is like smirking, eyes locked in on Perez. She tried to like chin tap her. I mean, she's like showing her the business at these weigh-ins, and Perez is more worried about shaking her ass to the crowd. Like, she's got a smirk on her face. She's smiling, but then she immediately turns and waves to everybody and literally like goes palms on the floor, ass shaking to everybody in the stadium. Like, I've already got a bet on Jocelyn Edwards, guys. Like, I had a bet on Jocelyn Edwards without thinking about the angle of the bad blood, the fight, the mental stakes, all that stuff. I simply felt like she had the skill set that I wanted to bet on here. Now, after recalling and looking back into all that stuff, I am so happy I'm on the Edwards side. And I love the fact that she's the one taking this fight seriously. I love that she's the one with the chip on her shoulder coming into this one. Because if Perez is taking her lightly, and it does appear by all accounts that she is taking her lightly, and Edwards is not taking this lightly, this is life and death, this is serious shit, this is coming back for her pride, that's the side I want to be on. Like, that's that extra little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I already feel like the skill set, the cardio, that's what I want to bank on. But if you fill in that with bad blood, you fill that in with this is the fight of my life, this is my Super Bowl, fuck yeah. Give me Jocelyn Edwards. I'm already on the money line. I've already got one unit on Jocelyn Edwards. And the call that I made on my Monday show was that I'm going to play the round 3 submission sprinkle here for Jocelyn Edwards. It is 40-1 I'm seeing on DraftKings. I got to check FanDuel. Maybe the number's even sexier over there. You never know. But I am going to be playing Edwards round 3, Edwards round 3 sub. The numbers are insane. Guys, run the tape back. Run the tape back. Because in Aileen Perez's last fight against Lucy Pudilova, who is not a good grappler, just recently started taking her grappling seriously. She gassed in that fight, and Pudilova had her in a deep rear naked choke position, just wasn't able to finish it. And in Edwards' last fight against Nora Cornell, who apparently is more of a fighter than we gave her credit for being initially, she also had her deep in a rear naked choke in round 3. So like, it's a focus. It's a thing that we have seen Perez be on the wrong side of, and it's a thing that we have seen Edwards exactly attacking. So I am absolutely going to be playing that, especially at 40-1. She is not going to be looking for this fight to go to the judges' scorecard. She is not going to be looking for this fight to be close. And I know that you can't just will yourself to being better than somebody, but again, look at the physicality. She's put the fucking work in. I think she's going to be ready with her lunch pail. She's going to survive the early storm, and then she's going to want to hurt her opponent. And she's not the hardest puncher in the world, and that's kind of the biggest thing here, is that I do think Edwards is eventually going to have to resort to choking as opposed to being able to get like a TKO or something like that, because frankly, I just don't think she can TKO her. I don't think she hits hard enough to TKO her, so she's gonna have to grab a neck at some point, and then fingers crossed, we get a tap. So that's the move. We're going dog shot here on Jocelyn Edwards, and we're going to hit that round 3 sub at 40-1 this week. I can feel it. Next up, Basel Hafez takes on Mickey Gall. Both guys made 170 pounds. Jacked. Jaxel Hafez. The dude is massive, okay? He's a tank. He's a fire hydrant. Mickey Gall looks fantastic, and he's in serious shape, too. I'll be honest with you guys. His abs, he's got some clean abs this week. Like, that guy looks like he put some muscle on. He looks like he took this camp very seriously as well. This was a very intense stare down. Mickey Gall does have a decent height advantage. I wasn't sure what to expect on this one. I don't know. In my head, Hafez was maybe like a little shorter. So the height advantage for Mickey Gall wasn't as pronounced as I kind of was thinking it might be in my head. It's been all one-way traffic on Basel Hafez. Everybody and their mother thinks Basel is winning this fight. He's now a -400 favorite. You can get 3-1 on Mickey Gall. and I'm just not sure what to do with this one. I'm going to pick Basel Hafez. I'm just going to go ahead and pick him to win. But Mickey Gall's a tough guy to finish. He does have questions surrounding his cardio. That's not great. His jiu-jitsu is less than Hafez. They've already grappled before, and Hafez won that. It was years ago, I know, but at the same time, you still have that mental check mark over your opponent. But again, it does look almost like a revenge spot like Jocelyn Edwards, where Mickey Gall appears to have taken this fight extremely seriously and is kind of coming for revenge in this spot. So I really am not sure what to do. The price is bad. I don't want to lay this with Hafez, but I am picking him to win. Do we get a finish? Maybe. So like maybe we bet violence in this spot. We got to pick him at a 2.5. So if Gall's going to win this fight, he's finishing. But nobody's finishing Basel Hafez. I mean, fuck, Jack Della couldn't finish Basel Hafez. So I don't think Gall's going to do it. So it's kind of the other way around, right? Like if Hafez is finishing Gall, I don't know. Is he? Like, he lost to JDM. Is he going to turn around and now finish Mickey Gall in his next fight? Like this could just be like a grindy decision or a closer fight than we're giving it credit for. And maybe it's an easy over. Maybe we should look at the over 2.5 instead of the under 2.5. Not a fight that I'm confident on, guys. Picking Basel. We'll just let this one kind of play out. Fireball and popcorn, get a drink, get a snack, see where this one goes. Next up, Jake Matthews, 170. Phil Rowe, 171. Jake Matthews, no real issues for him. He's a professional. He's been around the block, done this a million times, not worried about him. Phil Rowe, on the other hand, he's one of these guys that sucks himself down. He is so shredded on the scales every single time this guy weighs. Phil Rowe is massive. He is tall. He is lanky, but it looks like he filled up well. Right? We watched the ceremonials and he looked good and he's feeling himself too, guys. He's strutting a little bit. He's flexing a little extra. Like, I think he did okay. Like, even though it's a tough cut for Phil Rowe, looks like he's feeling pretty good. This was a very good stare down between these two. Neither guy is backing down here. Rowe does have a big height advantage in this spot. That height and reach, I think, is going to make a big difference in this fight. And that is why I bet on Phil Rowe earlier in the week. I will be honest with you guys. Phil does seem almost like a little bit of a public dog in this spot. And you guys know me. That just makes me nervous. You know, when I'm swimming against the current, when I'm telling people, why they're wrong and because I've got a real sharp read on the fight that's maybe bucking the trend, that's where I feel most comfortable. When everybody else is also going, yeah, dude, me too. It's like, oh shit. I get nervous. So I'm a little nervous about my Phil Rowe bet, but I do still think that he's probably this side here. I think violence might be good here in this spot because we've seen Jake Matthews with some serious power in his hands. We've seen him be able to finish people. Both guys can grapple. There's definitely some under potential here in this spot. My thing is, I think it's a club and sub. I think Phil Rowe is going to hurt Jake on the feet when they exchange, and we've seen Jake tapped out numerous times already in his professional career. Phil Rowe is a BJJ black belt. He's got those long-ass lanky arms. Darce chokes, high elbow guillotines, Ezekiel's, all that kind of good stuff. I think there's a chance that Phil Rowe grabs a neck, and fingers crossed that's how he gets it done for us. But I am on the dog and a little nervous. Grant Dawson takes on Joe Solecki. Both guys made 155 pounds today. Grant Dawson, little lobster face, no real problem there. Joe Solecki, no issues really for him either. Both these guys seem to not have much trouble making weight at this point. They size up well too. Grant Dawson just a little bit bigger, I think. Not exponentially so. It's not a massive difference, but this is a spot where I've got to bet on Grant Dawson. I've got him in a parlay. I got him earlier in the week where the number was a little bit lower. He's up and over minus 500 at this point. I think it makes sense for him to be the favorite. And this is really the problem with like MMA and money line betting is when everybody's on the same side. It just blows out, right? Like we all think this is a bounce back spot for Grant Dawson. And by all accounts, it really should be. I don't think the UFC's bringing Joe Solecki in here because they saw Grant Dawson can be had and hoping he knocks him out and gets a highlight reel KO to get him on track. That's not what's happening. They have seen that Joe Solecki has cardio deficiencies. They have seen that Grant Dawson maybe needs to hit the reset button and lower that level of competition, get back on track. So they gave him a guy who he can out grapple. And then they also gave him a guy who's not going to hurt him on the feet. This is Grant Dawson all day, guys. What I'm going to do is Grant Dawson round 2, Grant Dawson round 3. I will be taking prop shots on those because that's how he finishes, guys. He really puts a pace on people and he just cooks them. He's been off for like a year or two now after his knockout, or 10 months, something like that. So I'm expecting improvements from him. I think he's going to push a pace. We've seen Joe Solecki tire out. Grant can finish by KO or by sub, so you got to kind of be careful. Inside the distance makes more sense more often than not, just because he will snatch a neck. He prefers to snatch a neck, but when he can't grab somebody's neck, he will pound their face in. We've seen that before. So I kind of lean with the KO. Joe Solecki has never been submitted. That is his primary art, is that he's a jiu-jitsu fighter. However, even black belts will act like white belts once they get punched in the nose. So there is a chance that Grant Dawson gets his back and taps him out. But I kind of think Joe stays safe, and Grant Dawson just mauls him, gets on top, and like elbows him to hell. I kind of like the KO. I'm going to play 2-3 again, just straight by themselves. That's fine. But I kind of like the 2-3 KOs specifically if you're looking for something a little bit more juicy. And those numbers should be a little bit sexier. I think KO for Grant Dawson is plus 500, and I really kind of like that. GL 10 Almeida takes on Alexander Romanov here in the spot, and this one is, oh baby. I mean, I don't even know if this fits for like a 10-foil cap because I saw it with my own eyes, but we've got a 241-pound GL 10 Almeida taking on 265-pound Alexander Romanov. I talked about the one time Romanov took his shit seriously, got in shape, looked good, had abs, and I was all hyped up on this guy being a power wrestler, having a better gas tank, being able to hit harder, pushing a pace. I was like, oh, he could be a problem. He immediately went back to being the Pillsbury dope boy. I mean, I look like I could hang out with Alexander Romanov and I'd feel comfortable taking my shirt off with him in the room. Like, that's the kind of guy that we're dealing with here. He tried real hard one time and was like, nah, that ain't for me. And now he's cutting to get back down to 265 pounds again. But the bigger problem is when these two face off. Jailton Almeida is the larger human being. Guys, my whole thing with Jailton, my whole thing with wanting to fade Jailton Almeida is that I don't think he's a heavyweight. I'm like, you've got a guy who just doesn't feel like cutting to 205. He can. He absolutely can. He did. I know it was hard, but like, I think that's the weight class for him. He's given up 20 to not 20. Sorry. These guys are cutting to get to 265. So he's giving up 30 plus pounds at the heavyweight division. And I just don't think that's a recipe for success, especially against some of the better grapplers, a la Curtis Blades. But he's bigger. Jailton Almeida is the bigger man than Alexander Romanov. Like, they did like a selfie style, like arms around each other, smile, let's take a picture at the weigh-ins. He's huge. He's freaking massive. Like, I've got a guy in Romanov who I don't think is taking his shit seriously, who weighs the maximum, and he's not even the bigger man. That was the big thing, is I needed to see him be physically larger than Jailton Almeida, because if he's not bigger than Jailton, where's the issue going to be with Jailton pushing this guy around the cage? I talked about the cardio. I worry a little bit about Jailton's cardio. But if Alexander Romanov doesn't even have a size advantage in this spot, like, how's the cardio going to be a problem? Because, of course, the fatty's going to gas first. And we know he gasses. He gasses every single fight. So, like, I went from being like, you know what, this is probably, like, a little too wide of a line. I am not the Jailton Almeida guy, but I might bet Romanov. I don't really trust him, but it's a little too much for me. Now I'm like, fuck it. Jailton Almeida 2-3, baby. Like, I don't see, just watching them size up that way, man, I really think the physicality is going to be a bit of an issue, because Romanov does tire out and gas out. Is he the better striker on the feet? Maybe, but again, he can't strike with this guy for 15 minutes. They are eventually going to tire Romanov out just a tidbit, and when he's a little tired, he's going to get taken down by this man. So, like, I kind of think it's a Jailton Almeida ground and pound spot. I think he's going to find his way to a dominant position, and Romanov's just going to have a hard time getting up. He is not Derek Lewis. Like, he'll get up once or twice, and then he can't get up no more. So I do think Jailton eventually will secure a position on top of him. Romanov's a submission guy. Very similar to the Solecki and Grant fight for me. I think that Jailton Almeida is going to resort to trying to pound this guy's head in. And when he does that, I think that's going to be a spot where Romanov can't quite get off his back. So Jailton Almeida, I think, is going to get a TKO after he tires Romanov out. Round 2, round 3. Hell, maybe it's earlier than that. Maybe it is round 1, but I don't think so. I'm thinking about parlaying Jailton Almeida at this point. I kind of like the round 2-3 props, kind of like I did, or I'm going to do with Grant, except the numbers are a little worse. Plus 450, plus 900. It's not sexy. I do have to, I'm sorry, guys. The wife is needing some help with some stuff. We are just getting back from vacation. So I'm going to try and wrap this up here. Cesar Almeida, 185. Roman Hopilov matching 185. Cesar Almeida, very unassuming. He's one of these guys that he's in shape, don't get me wrong, but he's not like, oh, damn, that's a fighter. You know what I mean? Like, so he's one of these guys that looks, flies under the radar a little bit, whereas Roman Hopilov looks fantastic. Chase Hooper on steroids, all the steroids. Like, he looks fantastic. Abs are popping, muscles are popping, veins are sticking out. Like, he looks like he's ready to go for this fight. Slight height advantage here for Roman Hopilov. A very, very calm face-off here going into this one. But guys, I talked about this on the Sharp Action Report. This fight makes no sense to me. I mean, the fight makes sense to me. The line, the betting line makes zero sense to me here. You have got a guy who's a world-class kickboxer, fought tooth and nail with some of the best kickboxers on the planet, and is now transitioning over to MMA. And what does the UFC do? After seeing that he can defend a couple of takedowns, they give him a worse kickboxer. They give him a guy that does what he does, except in MMA. And that's the thing. Like, MMA fighters who move over to kickboxing get their asses whooped. MMA fighters who move over to boxing, we've seen what happens there, get their asses whooped. Like, we have a well-rounded skill set type of sport. So they're not as good in the pure sports as the guys that come from there, right? This is what we have in this spot is Roman Hopilov, who got taken down and submitted by a Glory kickboxer in his UFC debut. His ground game was so bad. He's been working on it and patching it up, and they've given him the bottom of the barrel. He beats those guys because they are not as good of kickboxers as him. That's the whole game plan that he's got. I kickbox better than you. The UFC goes, okay, now we got this guy who's got to win over Alex Pereira, and he kickboxes better than you. And that's the fight they're going to make here. Why is he the dog? Why was he the underdog? And I got people coming at me like, Hopilov's going to mix it up. Or Hopilov's going to shoot the takedowns. I'm like, do you guys really think that Hopilov has gone from getting taken down and rear naked choked from a worse kickboxer in his UFC debut to now he's going to be a good enough offensive wrestler to take this motherfucker down and then do something to him on the mat? We just saw 2 times in a row what happens when people try to take Cesar Almeida down. He has strong hips. He knows how to defend the positions. He also knows where his bread is buttered, and he works his way back up to the feet, and then he kicks them in the head. Like, this guy is so good at that game plan. He is quite literally Hopilov plus. Why was he the dog? I've got a 4-unit bet at plus 105 on Cesar Almeida. He's going to win this fight. And now he's a small favorite, minus 125-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't understand why he's not minus 190. I don't get why he's not minus 200. Like, it makes no sense to me why this man is so closely lined in this fight. And there's a lot of love and support out there for Roman Hopilov coming into this fight. And I said this just a couple of minutes ago with my guy, Andrew, on the Sharp Action Report. I think Robellis did this for us. I think Robellis got this fantastic line for us because he got completely exposed. Guy comes over, he's got medals in another striking sport, wins via thunderous knockout in his first UFC fight, and then gets exposed on the mat. And everyone's like, no more of that shit. No more of that shit. And that's why they think this guy's going to come over and get exposed on the mat. But Hopilov is not a guy who's going to be good enough to do that. And Cesar is not a guy who has taken this lightly. He has worked on the grappling defense. He has worked on getting back to his feet. He has worked on those positions. And we've seen it in his last couple of fights. So I absolutely believe that this is a fight that he's going to win. And I think he's going to win it super impressively, guys. I think it's going to be like a round 2 TKO, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to work with the leg kicks. I wouldn't be surprised if Hopilov just is the lesser man in there and gets shown the door. Like, I think he's going to get outclassed. I really do. I like Cesar, and I like Cesar by KO. All right, next up, we've got Randy Brown taking on Oleksiejczuk dos Santos. 170 for both guys. Randy Brown, very long, lanky, feeling himself. Another guy that's just riding high in his prime, all the confidence. Oleksiejczuk honestly looks good up there for being an old man. Shaved head makes him look grizzled and withered, but that man is dangerous as all get out, even though he looks that way. Very intense but respectful kind of face-off. You know, these guys have that fighter-to-fighter respect for one another, but they're about to get locked into a cage until somebody dies. So, both guys are ready to go in this spot here. Brown does have a decent height and reach advantage. And the longer I stare at this, the more I think I'm on the Randy Brown side. I've talked about it. I can't pick a Randy Brown fight to save my life. He's a guy I'm always on the wrong side of. So if I'm saying Randy Brown wins the fight, you guys probably should bet Oleksiejczuk. I'm not betting this one. I had a knee-jerk reaction of wanting to fade Randy Brown and bet Oleksiejczuk when I first looked at this fight without doing any of the tape study or anything like that. I was just like, oh, I like Oleksiejczuk. He looked good in his last fight. Fade him, fade Randy Brown. Let's go. I kind of pumped the brakes, did the tape. And after watching the tape, Randy's just in his prime, man. He's younger, he's taller, he's longer, he's faster. And yes, he's a little fragile. And that's the one thing that concerns me here is that if they go to war, Oleksiejczuk can crack this guy. We've seen Oleksiejczuk hurt a lot of people, but damn, that last fight was concerning. Oleksiejczuk getting cracked early the way he did and dropped and handled, and he did fight his way back in that fight. So he can do that here too. But Randy Brown's the kind of guy that if he hurts you, he's not going to blow his wad trying to finish you. He'll touch, he'll move, he'll wait for that next opening, and then he'll touch you again. He's got that type of fighting style where it's frustrating because if you bet him by knockout, he could just work his way to a decision, and he has no problems doing that. He does fight too closely sometimes. The Chaos fight, I bet on Chaos. I thought Chaos won that fight. It was very close because that's the way Randy Brown tends to fight if he doesn't land that big shot. So it's one where I don't want to lay minus 180 on Randy Brown because it could look minus 110. Right. But I also am not ready to fade the guy because we've seen some chinks in the armor for an old fighter who looks like, he's getting a little long in the tooth. I'll pick Randy Brown. Not going to be surprised if either guy wins by knockout, though. We got Alex Morono and Nico Price, another 170-pound fight here. Alex Morono, another soft body. Gotta love it. Nico Price looks like he's in great shape coming into this fight. He always does. He's got kind of a weird, freakish build, but he's got muscles all over the place, which is probably why he has that freakish knockout power from any angle. Nico does have the size advantage in this spot. It's not anything to write home about. He's a little bit bigger, very respectful between these two guys. Again, a rematch. It's a rematch in this spot. Nico Price got hurt early in the first fight and then came back and just deaded Morono. And that's what this guy's capable of. It's terrifying because his last couple of fights just haven't really gone his way. And especially getting knocked out the way he did, as fast as he did against a retiring fighter in his last fight. That's terrifying, man. That's absolutely horrifying for Nico Price coming into this one. However, Alex Morono's not a power puncher, guys. A lot of people are just like, oh, Morono's going to knock him out. Morono's going to knock him out. He's not a power puncher. He never has been. He's got 6 wins by KO. He's got a lot of decisions on his record. He ended up club and subbing Tim Means. He actually goes to decision a lot. And so we are banking on the fact that Nico Price's chin is completely gone. But is it so far gone that Alex Morono is going to be the guy to crack him and put him down? I am not so sure. And this is one where we saw this fight already. Nico Price won this fight already. So why is he plus 210? I can't quite talk myself into a bet on Nico Price, but I want to. I really want to find a way to bet on Nico Price. Maybe I put his knockout prop in one of my crazy ass parlays or something like that. But I've got that weird feeling that we are writing off Nico as dead because of his recent run. But I mean, he got knocked out. He got iced by Phil Rowe, who we've got some money on this week, deep in the 3rd round, right? He got decision loss to Michel Pereira, Vicente Luque, and that was an eye injury. That was back when he was durable as shit. His eye was completely closed. They wouldn't let him fight. He was still in that thing. He's taken piles of damage, but these guys are getting him late in the fights. It was really only Robbie that took him out super early. And then he's fighting guys like Jeff Neal, Abdul Razak. These are nuclear power punchers. That ain't Alex Morono. And Morono, on the flip side, has also fallen victim to some of these power punchers. Nico Price himself, but Chaos Williams got him. Santiago Ponzinibbio, a guy that he was styling on up until the point he got caught. I just think Nico Price has a puncher's chance. And if you're giving him a guy that's not going to kill him early, he's going to have a long time to have that puncher's chance. So I kind of am a little dog or pass here on this one. I'm struggling, guys. I'm going to say Price. I'm going to say Nico Price wins this fight. I don't know if I'm going to actually bet it or not. That is maybe the least confident prediction I've got on the entire card. Yes, I'll put money on Jocelyn Edwards before I'll put money on Nico Price at this stage. What has the world come to? Kevin Holland takes on Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, 185 for both men. It's a zero sweat for Kevin Holland. He's a guy that can fight at 170, no problem. So 185 is no issue. Oleksiejczuk, 185, he's another soft body guy, right? Even after cutting down from 205 to 185, he's just not an impressive physique. Holland does have the size advantage, although he's very skinny. That's something I did note. Mikhail is a very thick man. At least at 185 he is. So Holland does look a little slim to him, but Holland really only struggled with grapplers at 185, right? This is a spot where we are definitely calling for the tinfoil cap. Holland's a company guy. Holland is a guy who's taken a bunch of short notice fights for the UFC. Holland is a guy who's gotten in there and been thrown to the wolves. And so every once in a while, the UFC lets him put on a show. The UFC gives him a fight that's a really good matchup for him, somebody who he can really style on and remind everybody why we love Kevin Holland so much. And that's what this is. Oleksiejczuk is a guy who couldn't hack it at 205. He was too small. He was taking too much damage. He drops a weight class, and it's starting to look like he can't hack it down a weight class either. Now, he did get the win over Chidi, but I mean, Kyle, Michel Pereira, like these are guys that are, decent, solid, top half of the division type of fighters. I think Holland is a top half of the division type of fighter. Yeah, he's a little small, but he's fast as shit. And he hits hard. He's got the jiu-jitsu advantage. And we've seen Oleksiejczuk gasses out. We've seen he doesn't have good submission defense. This seems like a spot where the UFC is like, all right, you get back-to-back losses. Let's get you a win, kid. Get in there. Yeah, he's a little thick. Yeah, he's a little big. But you should win this one. I think it's Kevin Holland. I think it's Kevin Holland inside the distance. And another guy you have to bet inside the distance because Kevin Holland can knock anybody out. He also can submit people. He will club and sub. So like you never know what you're going to get with Kevin Holland. The one thing I will say is he was talking in his fighter interview very specifically about countering with his straight right down the pipe. And I think he said something about John Jones talking to him about that. So I'm kind of leaning more towards the KO in this spot. I was originally leaning sub because of the Oleksiejczuk submission concerns earlier in the week. But after hearing the way he's talking, and especially the way that Oleksiejczuk just kind of runs into his opponent's offense, sometimes when guys get hurt, you see a fighter that's savvy to grab the neck and finish them that way. Other times you get guys that like to get that big flashy score or knockout, and they just jump on them. And they just start pounding until the ref rips them off. And that's kind of the fighter I think Holland is. So I could definitely see this end up being a knockout rather than a sub, but the bookies know what's up. They've got them both priced at plus 240 each side. So you got to pick your poison. You're going to get a decent number if you pick KO or submission. And that's why I would say maybe just lay a little chalk on the inside the distance. Cause frankly, I think it's inside the distance more often than it's not. I do have Holland as the other leg of my parlay. So it's a 2-leg parlay. Grant Dawson, Kevin Holland, and I like that. I like that. I got minus 125 on that, and I got 2.5 units to win too. I'm looking forward to those two fights greatly. Co-main event, Paulo Costa takes on Sean Strickland. Both guys made 185. Paulo last to weigh in, and boy, he looked rough. He looked really bad on the scales today, guys. This is the guy, I mean, he literally moved a fight to 205 for shits and giggles because he just hates cutting down to this weight class. He's a big dude with a ton of muscle. However, he rehydrates extremely well. We saw that. Remember that video that went around that one time where like he was rehydrating with IVs when they were made illegal by the UFC, but he was doing it in his room anyway. Like that's the kind of guy we're dealing with here. He rehydrated very well. He looked great at ceremonials, even though his face was sucked out so badly at the initial weigh-in. Sean Strickland looked good. He honestly looks like he's a little more cut than usual, which this is something I'm struggling, guys, because Sean Strickland is still just kind of like a chaotic throwaway fighter in my brain, a guy that's going to get in there and scrap, a guy that's going to get in there and does what he does. And at the end of the day, just kind of be a mid-level of the interesting fight type of guy. Right. But that's not what happened. He got the belt and now he got a taste of glory. And now he's talking about getting his belt back. And like, he seems so motivated now compared to what he used to be. And especially you watch all the behind the scenes stuff. If you guys watch the pre-fight stuff, not On the Line. That's the gambling show with my boy Yanni and Nick. Remind me, guys, what's the name of the show that they do right before the big pay-per-views every single week? I can't remember. Anyway, you watch that kind of behind the scenes stuff, and he's like helping coach people. He's like really getting into this whole like leveling up thing and making a team. And he's not the psychopath that he is on Twitter when he's in the gym working with people and helping them improve. And it's a side of Sean Strickland that I didn't expect to see, and I'm not sure what to do with. So I bet Paulo Costa in this spot. I got plus 200 on him. The line has moved a little bit against me. I know everybody and their mother thinks this is just easy cooking here for Sean Strickland. But I think this fight's going to play out a little closer than people are expecting it to. Sean Strickland does do the thing where he just kind of walks forward and jabs. And I feel like it's a minutes versus moments thing. Paulo Costa is going to land the big shots. He'll land the flying knees, the spinning heel kicks. He'll explode in with big ripping hooks to the body. And if they're trading big shots like that, I think those will be what steals rounds. And even if Sean Strickland has more volume than Paulo, I think the oohs and the ahs from the live crowd when Paulo lands is going to be more of what gets the fight tipped in his favor. I just can't fathom laying minus 200 or higher on Sean Strickland. And it is a 5-round fight, which I know a lot of people are saying really favors Sean Strickland. That could be true. But we've seen Paulo Costa go hard deeper before. And he's one of these guys that has the mental fortitude to just keep going. He looks exhausted about 2 minutes into a fight, but he will still continue to push. He went a full 5 rounds with Marvin Vettori. And even though Vettori'd him, that's not an easy fight. And that's a long time to be trapped in there with a cardio monster. So he has done it before. And then I think back to like the Yoel Romero fight. That was only a 15-minute fight, but that was one of the craziest high-paced fights you've ever seen for two guys with the amount of muscle on their frames. And even though he was exhausted, he was still ripping big power shots at the end of that fight trying to get it done. So I think he can push through the exhaustion. People did talk about, I guess there's this photo going around. Staph is the key word here for UFC 302. Staph infections. Everybody's got a staph infection. I guess word on the street is that Paulo has mat burn on his foot, and it looks pretty nasty. It looks pretty gross. But he's got like a chunk missing from like the top of his foot. And if any of you guys have done any type of grappling before, that kind of mat burn comes from dragging your foot on a takedown. So like when you shoot a takedown, your foot, like imagine your foot is like this, right? When you shoot a takedown, it ends up going flat like this and dragging across the floor. That would tell me that Paulo Costa has been drilling his wrestling going into this fight. And that I'm very suddenly interested in. What if Paulo's grappling this week, guys? Like I already said that I think Paulo Costa by decision is like a sneaky good play at a crazy number. But especially if he's going to be coming in here and level changing and shooting takedowns. Oh, and this number dropped, guys. Costa by decision was plus 900 on DraftKings when I did the breakdown on Monday. Costa by decision is plus 750 right now on DraftKings. So that number has moved. Interesting. I may have to have a taste. I think it's higher on FanDuel, so I'll have to check there. But I think I'm still going to follow through with my plan. I've got 2 units on Costa plus 200, and I'm probably going to add Costa by decision at that crazy number. And if he grapples and is going to work with his jiu-jitsu and taking Sean out of his element in this fight gets very, very interesting. That is interesting. All right. Next up, main event time, everybody. Islam Makhachev takes on Dustin Poirier, 155 championship weight for both men. They were both rocking sunglasses today. You know, I kind of looking sideways at you. Why you hiding behind those sunglasses? They both did it. It's a wash. Can't get mad at anybody for that. The weight cut absolutely kills Islam Makhachev. No wonder this guy fights once a year. He does not like getting down to 155. He is always incredibly sucked out, chapped lips, dry mouth. Like this guy has zero water in his body when he makes 155 pounds. Dustin Poirier, no problem for him. He looked really good. Obviously, it's a tough cut for him. He's a big, thick guy at 155 as well. Islam does have a size advantage when they faced off, and Dustin was geared up, guys. Like, I mean, this was an intense face-off. Both guys are ready to go. I guess Dustin used the phrase "motherfucker" and pissed off Islam Makhachev at the press conference for some reason. That, like, culturally, I guess, got under his skin somehow. But Dustin was maybe the most intense I've seen him since the last McGregor fight. And he's always an intense guy. He always wants to get in there and fight. But this, he knows it's his last shot, and it looks like he's taking it seriously as such. I love Dustin Poirier as much as the next guy. And I've struggled with this fight so mightily because the writing is on the wall that Makhachev can out-grapple Dustin Poirier, and Dustin gives up his back, and Dustin will tap to better, superior grapplers. It's true. And in Dustin's last fight, he got my guy Benoit Saint-Denis. But speaking of staph, Benoit Saint-Denis had that giant pimple in the middle of his head where he had a staph infection like this that you couldn't hide. And you got to wonder how much that had to do with him slowing down and tiring out, right? Was it because Dustin is just, that much better and my guy wasn't ready for that fight yet? Or did the staph infection play a part in him slowing down and gassing out? That's the kind of shit we never know, right? But I would say that looking back at the history of the struggles for Dustin Poirier, I've got to go with Islam Makhachev to win this fight. Now, my soul is screaming, I want Dustin Poirier to win this fight for the people, for the fans, for the culture. I want DP to go out there and get undisputed gold wrapped around his waist finally and finish the story. I just don't know that that's going to happen. Then the other part of my brain kicks in. And guys, I was the one who was betting a 145er against Islam Makhachev. I talked about how he struggles in tight boxing range. And I know a lot of people have really been applauding his ability to strike, and they're saying he'll outstrike Dustin on the feet and things like that. And I don't agree with that. And especially if they're in like super tight, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Dustin is still a much cleaner boxer than Islam Makhachev is. And I bet Volkanovski in the first fight at like 5-1 or whatever it was. And that fight was close. Guys, I thought Volkanovski won the first fight. I really did. Volk on a full camp gives Islam a run for his money. Now, Volk is maybe technically superior to a guy like Dustin Poirier, but we're dealing with a much larger frame, a much larger human, and I'm very much of the belief that Islam is not Khabib. Like, at the end of the day, they're not the same man. They don't have the same build. They don't have the same frame. They can do some of the same things, but some better, some worse. They are not identical. And because of that, just because Khabib handled Dustin the way that he did, I don't know that he's going to immediately have the same problems with Islam Makhachev. And I think if Alexander Volkanovski didn't take that rematch on super short notice, rolled off the couch to go fight him, I think it would have been another close fight. I think it would have been another very close fight. And Volkanovski pushed Islam in that first fight to the point that he was just riding back control for the last 2 rounds of that fight. He was exhausted. He wanted nothing to do with Volkanovski on the feet in the 4th and 5th rounds of that fight. So if that's what we're dealing with here, if Dustin has made some improvements, if he's done anything about his issues with the back control, if he can shake a guy like Islam off and drag this fight deep, maybe he can do what Alexander Volkanovski couldn't. And that would be get like a late finish. Believe it or not, I know a lot of people are thinking that like Dustin has to finish early, right? I think he finishes late. I would look at the KO 3-4-5 props for Dustin. I know he's a guy that does his work early, and when people get into a gunfight with him, it doesn't end well for them. Are you guys hearing that? That's my boy Bo. That's my boy Bolin. Dogs are barking. Dogs are barking for the main event breakdown on the Undefeated post weigh-in show. I think Bo just made his first pick on the podcast, guys. Might have to sprinkle those late round KO props because you're getting stupid numbers, 50-1, 60-1 for KO round 4, KO round 5, and especially if Islam gets tired. I think that's when Dustin can take over and have some success. Obviously, it may not get there, right? This fight could be over in the 1st or 2nd round, and I think that's very possible. But I am not an Islam believer. I never have been. I'm all Team Umar. So I'm not sure what to do with this fight because I probably at this price tag should pull the trigger on Dustin. I can't get behind -600 on Islam. -250, sure. Makes perfect sense. -200, no problem. -600, it's gone too far. Do I bet Dustin? That's the part I'm struggling with. I will let you guys know. I'm going to finalize my card tonight. Obviously, I will tweet out and post all my picks on Twitter, on Instagram. If you're in the Home of Fight Discord, I've got my own channel in there where all I do is post my plays. So it's a real easy, convenient way for you guys to see what action I am on each and every week. So look for my plays there. And there's a link in the description of this video if you want to join that free Discord. Come on in and hang out, guys. Good luck on all your degenerate action. Let's make some fucking money this week. I can feel it. It's going to be a good one. Big pay-per-view feeling. I'm loving it. We're going to have some fun. We're going to make some cash. Let's do this damn thing. Get out there and have a good day. Let's roll.